Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special edition of This Just In Radio. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. Today, we're broadcasting live from Tampa, Florida, in the Moffitt Cancer Center. We are graciously invited to join the CancerX Leadership Summit and have several other leaders joining the show to launch our new Cancer Innovation Series. Many thanks to Dr. Kamal Jethwani and Dr. Nainesh Parikh for their hospitality in making this on-location series happen. This specific Cancer Innovation Series was initially derived from a conversation last October at the health conference in Las Vegas, where I became very optimistic about the strides in cancer care, innovation, and patient outcomes. As we're outlining these episodes, it became even more obvious why we need to tell these encouraging stories about innovation, survivorship, and curing cancer. I hope all of you find these episodes as enlightening and encouraging as me, and I expect to host a follow-on series later this spring, so stay tuned. And now to launch this Cancer Innovation Series with me, please welcome back two familiar voices to the show. Vice President of Digital Ventures for Moffitt Cancer Center and the Chief Executive Officer of AccelerOnc Studio, Dr. Kamal Jethwani, and Vice President and Chief Clinical Expansion and Partnerships Officer for Moffitt Cancer Center, Dr. Nainesh Parikh. So this series all started from a conversation at the health conference in Las Vegas last fall. There's a growing confidence and optimism that we're getting closer to curing cancer, or at least I personally feel there is, just because I know how much data is stored in silos, and if we can unlock those silos through interoperability, through AI, and lots of other innovations that are coming out very, very quickly, some are already here, I believe that we can absolutely cure cancer much more quickly than ever before. But, and we'll talk about some of the data silo here in a moment, but from your perspective, how optimistic are you in that we are making demonstrable strides to curing cancer, but then also what's the most meaningful progress today in that direction that you see?
We said this was, I think you told me this was a radio show.
Correct.
So I've got a big smile on my face.
Yes, amen.
Because
yes.
I remember that conversation at HLTH, and I remember saying, oh, this is going to be a fun conversation. Not because I'm pessimistic, right, certainly, but respectfully, I remember thinking and saying, I kind of disagree. I don't think we're anywhere near curing cancer as we know it, just as a general statement.
Yep.
So, yes, I think I am hopefully optimistic maybe.
As an expert, too.
Right,
yeah.
that there are pockets where we are making rapid growth and rapid progress using data, which is great. And I do think that the keys are going to still be in clinical trials, getting more patients on clinical trials, and for what it's worth, generally speaking, I think the digital tools that we have and that people are creating are the ones that are really rapidly getting patients onto these trials to prove out progress. So that's kind of the non-answer you might not be looking for. But truth be told, I'm not totally optimistic yet that we're really, truly making the progress that I hope that we will soon. The last thing I'll say is areas where I think we are making progress, I think there are complementary and new novel targeted therapies that are really exciting. There's new treatments that are constantly improved. For example, there's treatment for liver metastases from uveal melanoma. That was traditionally like a very hard cancer to treat because the concentration of the chemotherapy in the liver was so challenging to get to. That's an example of an interdisciplinary treatment that's quite novel that allows you to kill the cancer cells in the liver and prolong survival. And that is on that kind of continuum of getting metastatic disease to a chronic therapy, because those patients can continuously get treatments that are not systemic treatment, that don't cause all the miserable side effects. So that's just one example. I'll let Kamal hop in.
Yeah, so I'm gonna sort of refine the question a little bit.
Absolutely.
On you.
Please.
Right, but what does it mean to improve outcomes in cancer?
Yep.
Right? For the person who's getting the best cancer treatment at the top 5 NCI cancer centers already today with the global expert of whatever, yeah, how much movement are we going to make from where we are today to maybe in the next 2 to 3 years? Some movement, not groundbreaking. But think about the patient that's getting cured at a community center in the middle of, let's say, Kentucky. As a state, we know that Kentucky has one of the worst cancer outcomes and survival rates, right? For that patient, if we were able to change things and how things worked and how data was looked at and how we could bring the best expertise and advanced therapies to that patient, for that patient, that might be a 5 to 10 year difference in survival. That, to me, is huge, right? So the question, I think, needs to be a little bit more nuanced, right? I think that we could probably make a significant difference in quality of outcomes, quality of life, and survival, progression-free survival, for a lot of patients in this country today already. And we're not doing that. And that is, to me, criminal, right? So let's fix that.
Absolutely.
And then for the patients who are getting the best optimal whatever treatment, are we really going to cure them in many, many cancers? That's probably not going to happen today with what we have available. But we're inching in that direction, right?
So I love it. And that's why I wanted to do the show. That's where the series came from. I want to start talking about, curing cancer, but from an optimistic message, but and making these demonstrable strides forward, like you guys are doing with innovation, certainly what you're doing with care here at Moffitt. In that direction, we talked about having cancer being treated more like a chronic condition. So what are some of the stats there? I want to say up to 70% of cancers can be treated as a chronic condition, but what are the stats as experts? Because that's an optimistic message. When we think of cancer as a death sentence, a lot of people do, just generically out there. But please help me in my audience with that type of thought.
So there's a few considerations for what will result in better outcomes for you, right? Number one is like, when do you catch the cancer? For many cancers, the earlier you catch them, the better your outcomes are, right? And so just as a rule of thumb, get all your screenings done on time if you can. Make sure you have a primary care doctor who cares and is keeping up with screening guidelines, right? And make sure that you're engaging in behaviors that we know are correlated with a few lower chances of cancer. Simple, right?
Yep.
So if you do that, great. That's one thing. So earlier we catch it, the better it is. Number two, where you get seen first matters, right? And we know this, like the zip code of where you get seen matters. So make sure that your access is fixed. And so patients who get seen at the right places with the right level of expertise do better. We know that, right? So that's number two, kind of, determinant of whether you're going to do well or not. Number three is, I think, access from a affordability and a innovation standpoint. So if you have access to clinical trials, if you have the ability to flex yourself and your schedule and other things to be able to, access treatments that may not be available within your immediate zip code, are you willing to travel to California from the East Coast for a clinical trial and stay there for 3 months? Like, there's a lot of those things that are barriers for our patients today that result in suboptimal outcomes, right? So if you optimize a lot of those things, yes, you can go very far already, right? There's a lot of, sort of pivotal trials going on right now in cancer. We don't know where they're going to end up, but they're very promising. And so again, if you get access to those things, that could mean a huge difference in your survival outcome. But that is sort of, thinking about it from a cure perspective. Even thinking about it from a chronic disease management or a survivorship perspective, right? We know already, for example, 10 years ago, breast cancer didn't look like it is today.
Right.
So let's just assume the same level of progress that we're going to make in the next 10 years, right?
That's excellent.
If today 85% of breast cancer patients can be fully cured or can be managed as chronic disease, that's happening today. That wasn't the case 10 to 15 years ago.
Right.
Let's say that the next 10 years we kind of do that for a few more cancers, right? Now you're going to have probably a very large population that is living in remission, or that is living in progression-free survival, or that is living with some sort of like cancer history, and they need to be managed on an ongoing basis. They need to be screened. They need to be given medications. They need to be on whatever, right? I think that is going to be the next big revolution in cancer care. All of our cancer centers are going to have to start to think about how do we manage our patients on a really, really long-term basis, and how do we manage them as survivors, and how do we manage them as chronic disease patients.
So we add in, I'm a GU oncology specialist, really kidney and prostate. Used to treat some colorectal, some liver-based, hepatocellular carcinoma and cholangiocarcinoma, but haven't really been in that space as much. So most of what I'll say is related to either screening and prevention or to prostate and kidney cancer. In the first place, what Kamal said is absolutely right. The best way to cure cancer is to catch it early. I believe the number of eligible women in the country of the if that's 100%, I like this simple math.
Yep.
Only 70 to 80% actually get mammograms, right?
Yeah.
So let that sink in. To Kamal's point, 20% of eligible people who could benefit from a mammogram. So the first thing for patients, I think, is irrespective, whatever we know right now out there, particularly for skin, breast, colon, prostate, lung, particularly if you are or have been a smoker. There are screening algorithms out there that we already employ all day, every day, that need to be undertaken by a patient or any person alongside their doctor. Like, period, end of story. And there are people who are higher risk. In prostate cancer, African Americans and prior family history connote a higher risk. So in those patients, men should be hypervigilant.
Right.
Same thing with breast, specific around prior family history. So you got to be hypervigilant. So I stress it because oftentimes our industries are focused on therapy, and it kind of goes from the back end to the front end. Therapy first, then diagnostics, then screening and prevention. And it's kind of like really, in my mind, I think we should flip it because screening and prevention is where you start.
Right.
And if you end up in the unfortunate situation that you have to treat, fine, right? Never mind work up. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is for concrete numbers, for example, for stage 1 prostate cancer, depending on the risk stratification, but even all comers, men who are found to have stage 1 prostate cancer, and when we say stage 1, I mean clinically significant, which means you would treat it because there are certain types of stage 1 that you don't even treat, you just watch. Those men have a 100% cure rate, meaning our therapies today can cure them. And at 5 years, the recurrence rate really should be less than 5%, right?
Excellent. That's
which is great.
Yeah, that's what I get to. Yeah.
And the key then becomes, how do you undergo therapy to not impact the quality of your life? That's the focus in those patients. Kidney cancer, T1A kidney cancer, which is really less than 4 centimeters, with no nodal involvement, no veins or anything like that. So 70% of those are found incidentally in adults because they've got back pain, they've got belly pain, something else. They had a CT scan and happened to see a renal mass. So fully curable, surgery like partial nephrectomy. You really don't even need total nephrectomy depending on the size. Ablation, even radiotherapy. These are all accepted on the NCCN guidelines. Certainly surgery and ablation. At 5 years for T1A, the recurrence rate should be less than 5%, right? So these are curable cancers, right? But here's the note. Prostate, we have an imperfect but existent screening mechanism. Kidney, we actually don't. So on the flip side, I'm not recommending that everybody go out there after the age of like 30 and get a CT scan. It's not what I'm recommending. But when you find it, you got to do something about it, and it's actually curable, right? I'll just compare that with stage 1 pancreatic adeno. If I understand it correctly, and I'm not an expert in this area, but when we were going through this as a family, we were told that even stage 1 who are surgically resectable, something crazy like 50% recur within a year or within 2 years.
Wow.
Right? They're bad actors. We don't totally know why. You can't ever make that really a chronic disease, right? Because if it does recur, the likelihood of survival longer than a year is low. So my only point is, I don't know the overall, kind of chronic disease areas. I think colorectal is one that we've done really good at in using multiple lines of chemo and then targeted agents. I think metastatic renal cell carcinoma is one of those ones. I don't know the true numbers. 70%, to be honest, sounds high.
Okay. Well, Dr. Jethwani, Dr. Parikh, we are at time. However, we're going to do this again because I have several follow-up questions that I want to get to, because this is an optimistic message that is exciting about where we can cure, what we can treat, and then the innovations that are moving in this direction. So we're going to do this again, gentlemen.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And for my next segment in this Cancer Innovation Series, please welcome President and CEO of the Moffitt Cancer Center, Dr. Patrick Hu. Well, Dr. Hu, thank you very much for joining us today and welcoming us here on your facility. So from your perspective, what recent innovations in cancer are you most encouraged by, and why do you believe they're meaningful?
Well, there's a lot of innovations in cancer we're very excited about, Justin. We feel that the science is so good now that we are getting better treatments every day. Our patients can live longer and have fewer toxicities. We're really excited about immune therapies where we stimulate the body's immune system against cancer. And we're excited about that because these immune cells can go and touch cancer cells, recognize them, release proteins, kill them, and then go to another cancer cell. And these immune cells can live in the body for decades. And so giving patients what they really want is a long-term durable response so they can see their kids grow up, their daughters down the aisle, meet their grandkids. That's what it's all about. And at Moffitt Cancer Center, we're really excited about T-cell therapy.
Absolutely. Well, so Dr. Jethwani and I, last night, were talking about T-cell therapy. Talk a bit about that to my audience, about innovations there, but also the excitement around that.
Yeah. So T-cell therapy, you can do in a number of ways. We all have T-cells. T-cells are here to fight viruses. But we've learned to arm the T-cells with genes so that they recognize the cancers. And so I think there's a lot of ways to do this, but we can take immune cells out of the body, put genes in them, have them recognize the cancer to kill them. And sometimes the immune cells get turned off in the very nasty battlefield of the tumor. We call that the tumor microenvironment. So we're also learning to change their metabolism with genes. We're even using CRISPR to cut out genes so that they work even better. So these are the kinds of things we do at Moffitt, where we've treated more patients with T-cell therapy than anybody in the world. Yes. And we also have a gene therapy suite where we can make the genes to clinically give them to patients and modify their immune cells.
Yeah, and then this conversation specifically, I had at a high level at the HLTH conference last year with Dr. Jethwani, and I got very excited. And that's where the whole cancer series spurred from that conversation. And also I wanted, this is a very encouraging message, and this is why I want to start talking about this more. I'm going to actually dedicate a chunk of 2026 of my radio show to what you guys are achieving, but also the very positive message around this, and also the survivability of cancer. I think is when we naturally think as patients, just general patients in the industry and community, we sometimes feel it's a death sentence, and it's absolutely not. And that's the kind of message I want to get out there. It's just very encouraging.
Yeah, I think what we have to remember, Justin, is cancer's, hundreds of diseases.
Yes.
And we're making more headways in some than others. The disease I treat is advanced melanoma. That's a disease that starts on the skin and goes throughout the body and can attack many different organs in our body. That used to be uniformly lethal. 15 years ago, 95% of my patients would pass away within a year. Now over half of them are getting long-term durable survival. I'm becoming good friends with them because talking about the kids, and they're just seeing me once a year and getting a checkup. They're essentially cured because we're stimulating their T cells against the cancer.
I love that, and thank you for sharing that message specifically, because that's right. I think up to 70%, again, I don't want to start mixing numbers, but I think 70% of cancer is either treatable or curable. Is that correct, ballpark?
It depends on the stage and the type of cancer. And we also have to remember, Justin, that 40% are preventable.
Right.
So if we can try to prevent, no one should smoke, we should watch our weight, watch the sunburns. We do that, we can watch alcohol. We do that, we could prevent a lot of the cancers in the first place. And then we can get even more of them by early screening and detection. So there's a lot of things we can do to cut this death rate down, but there's way too many deaths from cancer.
Right, and that also is a very encouraging message there. So what are you personally working on today that you're most passionate about, and how does it connect to improving cancer care or outcomes?
Well, my own lab works on T-cell therapy, but as an institution, we're working in all the different areas. One area is nutrition and food. We set up a whole nutrition kitchen.
Love that.
Because food is a very important method to prevent cancer, but also treat cancer. Mm-hmm. We're finding that if you have enough fiber in your diet, you can fuel what's called the microbiome, the bacteria in the gut, to help your immune system fight cancers like melanoma. But yet a lot of the research in food is not that good. It's based on surveys. It's like, Justin, how many hamburgers did you have over the last year?
Right.
I mean, do you remember?
Yeah, probably about 7. Not many. So I believe in food and food health. So yes.
So, but no one remembers that, right? And so we have a food kitchen.
Right.
You guys should visit it.
Absolutely.
Where we know exactly all the macros, and we give the volunteers and the patients all their food and snacks for several weeks. We measure the microbiome, we measure the blood for the immune response. We're really understanding prospectively how the diet is affecting health. And that's really the kind of prospective data that's needed to determine what the answer is. So the most common questions my patients ask me is, what should I eat?
Right. No, fascinating, and I love that. And I've studied the only reason I kind of know my number ballpark is because I've taken this very seriously over the last 10 years. I know food is directly related to health, alcohol intake, smoking, all those type of social factors. So I've been able to change my life pretty dramatically in that area. So I have this great longevity. I have great genes. My grandmother lived to 98 and a half. But I also want to make sure I make it that far, just because I have great genes, social factors and other come into play. So, I've taken it very, very seriously on my side. So, and I love the fact that you guys are attacking it not only from a medicinal side, from a treatment and drug, but also food. Very, very important. So we will absolutely check out the food kitchen. What are your goals for CancerX? We're here specifically today because of CancerX and the leadership meetings that are occurring, but what do you hope to accomplish in 2026 or help to accomplish in 2026?
Well, I think we should scale our effort. At Moffitt Cancer Center, we know our outcomes are better than most centers around the world because all we do is cancer. We have specialists. We have 10,000 people just focused on cancer. We don't treat heart disease. We don't treat Alzheimer's, we treat cancer. So our cancer outcomes are second to none. But there are 10 million deaths globally to cancer every year. So we can't treat everybody in the world. So how can we scale that? We're going to do it digitally. And so that's how we love CancerX, because out of the hundreds of companies that want to be in the incubator, we have a dozen or so every year that come. They get coached, they get sponsored, and hopefully out there to scale healthcare so that we can get better outcomes for patients across the globe. And we've had some success stories. Really excited about that. And this is the third year we've had the accelerator, and we want to just keep scaling it every year. But this is how we're going to scale our effort to help even more patients.
Right. And I think what's exciting, what I heard last night during one of our events here, was how we're really shifting care from getting the right people into the hospital that needs to be here, but then shifting the care that could actually be in the outpatient setting, the AMC, or the ambulatory medical center, or the home, hospital at home. So I know you guys have been, great leaders in that nationally, but talk a little bit about that, the shift from the hospital to the AMC to the home, if you would, for a moment.
Okay. Yeah, when I talked about 15 years ago when I was treating advanced melanoma,
yes,
and 95% of the patients would pass away within a year. The treatments we gave were in the intensive care unit.
Right.
I was giving treatments that sometimes caused patients to be on the ventilator.
Right.
And so now the treatments are outpatient. Most of my treatments are in the infusion center.
That's great. Yep.
Or they're pills that I prescribe.
Yep.
And so the intensive inpatient care, cancer care, is shifting to the outpatient setting, and the outpatient setting is going to soon shift to the home setting.
Right.
And so as we do that, we're going to have ways to communicate with patients, understand, observe toxicities, make sure we can get all the data. And that really is going to be through digital mechanisms.
Absolutely. And also, you're improving outcomes while also giving a much better patient experience. The patients are at home, they're much more comfortable at home, and now we're seeing even better outcomes, certainly in a lot of cancer cases, when they're at home. So I love that. I love the work that you guys are doing in the innovation there. So looking into the proverbial crystal ball, what strategy, capability, or shift must CancerX make in the next couple of years to really accelerate innovation or outcomes?
Right. Well, I think they have to get uptake and help these innovative biotech companies. The challenge with it is the integration. Mm-hmm. So when they come in, and this is what the CancerX coaches and sponsors are doing. They're coaching them along. They're getting a playbook. It has to be a playbook for integration, because in healthcare systems, we have hundreds of thousands of patients on a plane in the air that we treat every day.
Right.
We can't plug in an innovative solution that tanks the EHR and everything comes to a grinding halt and harms a lot of patients.
You got it.
So we have to de-risk that. We can't put in an innovation that's going to cause a cyber worm to come in and shut down our operations, right? And so what the CancerX, what we're trying to help these companies do is develop a playbook of integration such that we can have them make sure they're cyber secure, make sure we can try to standardize the legal entries into these systems. We have to try to standardize the integration. We have to communicate to these systems the awesomeness of innovation and why they have to be innovative, and also not sugarcoat the integration. It takes real energy to integrate, and a lot of the effort is in the integration with your current EHR and other systems, and that is doable. Absolutely. But it's not something you just pull out of the box and plug in. So we have to communicate that, standardize it as much as we can, try to help these companies with a playbook. That way they're going to go out there and be successful with these systems.
I love it. You nailed it on the head. And actually, technically, that's where the conversation initially started, again, last fall with Dr. Parikh and Jethwani, because I spent a lot of time even on Capitol Hill creating standards for interoperability of this data. And so we had a thought, and I think this is debatable, and this is actually where this series came from as well, is we believe for many, many years, actually if not a couple of decades now, that we actually could cure cancer by accessing the data that we have stored in silos. We have hundreds of thousands of silos of data across the country, and even in a lot of cancer centers, because we don't have a lot of the interoperability. So since we actually have tons of data locked up, and if we start sharing that data, we'd actually be able to improve outcomes because we have access to all of this, again, data on treatments that have been, again, locked up in silos. Now, again, that's a big conversation. We're not going to tackle that now, but that's where the whole shift is. We need to unlock this information, securely share it. We need to make sure everything's secure, but also enable interoperability so we can start to look at data that may not be inside our facility, but we might have a decade-long experience or outcomes from all these different sources that we don't have access to today. So, and that's what actually Dr. Jethwani and Parikh and I are talking about kind of on the side because, again, moving this interoperability forward is really important. So, but Dr. Wu, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we'll certainly have you back. We're going to do another series up here probably in April or May. So we'll hopefully have you back again.
Thank you so much for all you're doing. And yeah, we need to come back because I have a lot to say about sharing of data. It's really not the unwillingness to share.
Right, absolutely true.
It's just we don't have the right systems to share, and the data is totally disorganized in these different entities. It's not shareable right now.
Right, absolutely true.
It has to be organized better. And the question is, how can we do that as a collective?
Yep. Well, we'll absolutely pick that up because it's a great topic for sure.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Wu, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, that's a wrap from Tampa and the Moffitt Cancer Center and CancerX. Thank you all for listening, and I certainly want to offer a note of gratitude to the leaders of CancerX, Moffitt Cancer Center, Advocate Health, Fred Hutch, Amazon Web Services, Rush, and other leading cancer centers, life science organizations, and technology. Together, these voices provide a comprehensive view of how collaboration between providers, researchers, and industry is shaping the next decade of oncology innovation. And a special note of thanks to Jake Reed, my head of media. Jake did a phenomenal job managing this remote podcast and also keeping all of us on track. And as always, a big thank you to all my listeners. We're grateful for you, and you make us better with every broadcast. And please stay tuned in weekdays as we broadcast at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can find me at LinkedIn at Justin T. Barnes or track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag #ThisJustinRadio so you can respond to your comments from the show. If you miss any part of this broadcast, all of my This Justin Radio shows are posted on Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and the TuneIn platforms. And also check out the content we published in the new Thought Leadership page at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.